Last week it was Activision. This week it's Imagic. Did your favorite game make it to the top of the list? Let's check out the Imagic Top 10 for the Atari 2600. Let's go! And our first game in the list at number 10, we have Fathom, released in 1983. As with so many things in our lives, nostalgia and how we perceive things can go a long way in how we remember our experiences with video games we played a long time ago. Fathom would have rated higher on this list if it were compiled back in the 80s. In fact, nostalgia and fun memories are the only reasons it made the top 10 list at all. Fathom checks all the boxes when it comes to your typical Imagic game. Pretty graphics, cool sounds, and a really well-thought storyline for the game. You're a fellow named Proteus, and your mission is to rescue the mermaid Neptina, who is locked up in a cage at the bottom of the sea. In order to save her, you must recover the 3 broken pieces of the magical trident. Once you have the trident back together, you can unlock her cage and then drag her ass back to your man cave. Just kidding about the last part. But as far as the storylines go, this does sound really cool, doesn't it? You start out the game as a dolphin and flap around the ocean by pressing the red button on the joystick. You must swim down and collect seahorses and hopefully a piece of the trident if you're lucky. Bumping into anything else in the ocean can be hazardous to your health, so try not to do it. After collecting enough seahorses, you will get the prompt that you can transform into a bird and take to the skies. You fly the seagull by repeatedly pushing the button, kind of like you would do in the game Joust. Just flap your wings by pressing the button. By touching the pink clouds, you will eventually earn pieces of the trident. There are 3 separate pieces to search for and collect. But, oh, those birds, those awful, awful black birds. Around the volcanoes and especially in the clouds are waves of black birds, and when you bump into them, they knock you about the screen like a pinball. Every collision with these birds sucks a little more life out of your character. Trying to capture that lower cloud that sits so close to the bottom edge of the screen without slipping below can be a real pain in the ass too. Eventually, the clouds turn gray, and you can still touch them. And hopefully you'll get a piece of the trident, but whenever you touch them, your life force gets sucked out, and you can't do it. You can't touch many of them, or the game is over. Fathom was a cool game back in the early 80s that got a lot of extra credit for being a cool story and also having great graphics. I really don't enjoy playing it as much these days because of the frustrating sequence with those birds in the clouds. Coming in at number 9, we have Star Voyager, released in 1982. Star Voyager was one of Imagic's original 3 releases back in early 1982. It's basically a scaled-down version of a Star Raiders game that follows a more fast-paced shooting style with fewer lulls in the action. It might be a simple game, but Star Voyager is a very challenging space shooter. The object is to destroy the enemy ships in each sector and then pass through the star portal, which refuels your ship. There are 7 separate waves, with each wave containing more enemy ships to destroy. So this is a game you can actually finish. You won't just play forever, but it's not easy to do. Each wave that you go through, or each level, is represented by a different color that surrounds the screen, the play field. So you kind of you're able to track, how things are going and what level you're on. You have 2 weapons to choose from in Star Voyager. Now, you set the weapons with the right difficulty switch. Set to B, you fire your photon torpedoes, and when set to A, you fire your lasers. Now, the lasers are way more effective and a lot more satisfying to blow away the enemy ships with. But there's a huge catch in the amount of energy each weapon uses when fired. The photon torpedoes only burn 1 unit of energy when fired, but the lasers burn 10. Now this is an issue because you only have 100 units of energy per round. That's by far the lowest I've ever seen on any game like this. Now your ship doesn't expend energy by traveling through outer space, like the other games like this do. It's only consumed when you fire your weapons, and when you are hit by enemy pulsar bombs or you happen to collide with an enemy ship. Now if you find yourself near the end of a round and you're low on energy, and you really are afraid to shoot your weapons, you can try to dodge the enemy ships. And if you can dodge them for long enough, you'll get past them, and then you'll be able to pass through the portal and get your ship refueled. Now, the further you make it into the game, the better the overall ranking you will earn when your game is over. If you happen to master the game on these settings, Just flip the difficulty switch to A on the left, and it will speed the game up considerably, and it's real hard to beat on that level. Now Star Voyager also has a couple of two-player options. The first option allows one player to control the ship and the other to fire the weapons. The other option allows the second player to play as the enemy ships. Imagic often did have cool variations with two players, not just switching turns, but I mean they did the same thing on Demon Attack, but they were good about that in a lot of their games. Now, if any of y'all owned Star Voyager back in the day, or did you ever play it at a friend's house? Let me know in the comments. Coming in at number 8, we have Moonsweeper, released in 1983. We all have a game from our past, often long ago, that, let's just face it, we are just destined to suck at. For me, one of those games is definitely Imagic's Moonsweeper. You absolutely had to read the instructions before you started getting heavily involved with this game. If you didn't, you were going to be at some serious disadvantages because there was often a lot going on while playing. Moonsweeper has 2 different play screens, but the second screen, when you zoom down to skim over the surface of the moon, can vary in several ways. But let's start with the often very frustrating, pain in the ass opening scene. You have to maneuver your ship around and dodge all kinds of crap that is coming in from both sides of the screen. You're trying to connect with either a blue moon or a green moon when it zooms in your direction. It comes in along with all other stuff. You do have a shield that you can activate on this first screen, which is a lifesaver because it'd be a lot harder if you didn't have it. But you do have to give up 10 points every time you use it. Now, when you finally connect with the moon, you are then automatically zoomed down to the surface. And your object then is to rescue 6 miners by simply running over them with your spaceship. Now, when you first get down there, you're going real fast, but you can control the speed of your ship. And I find that slowing things down a bit makes it quite a bit easier, even though I still suck. Now, you have these towers that will pass by. You see those probably more than anything else. And they don't do anything. They don't attack you, but you can dodge them. Or you can shoot them for 20, you get 10 quick points for destroying them. But be careful not to hit any of your miners with friendly fire as they come by also. You do have a radar spotter at the top of the screen, and it will kind of show you where the next miner is going to come in, so you'll kind of know to be in that area, be lined up in that area, so whenever he does start to come into view, you can pick him up. Now, these launcher ships will come down, and then they will launch little destroyers. They look like little UFOs. And those things are the absolute biggest menace you will face during this part of the game. Now, you can launch missiles also on the surface, but you can launch them straight up into the air too, so you can destroy the stuff that is flying in the sky. You can hit the launcher ship, and there's also satellites that zoom across. Now, thankfully, those don't attack you, but if you can hit them, they do give you pretty big points. So if you see them, try to blow them away. Though I usually miss them, it seems like. It is kind of cool when you can destroy those launchers, though, because those things are always launching those little UFOs, and those things are a pain in the ass. Now, you remember those towers I was talking about a little while ago? Sometimes I think it's better not to destroy them. They are pretty easy to dodge as they zoom by, but because of how those destroyer UFOs zoom to the left and right across the screen, they will often crash into one of the towers and then blow themselves up. So the towers can often help you, and, just by accident. So I think sometimes it's better just not to even shoot them, since you only get 10 points for them anyway. Now, once you collect your 6 miners, you then have to fly through the accelerator rings so you can gain enough speed to zoom back off into space. At the start of the game, only the blue and green moons appear, but after you complete a rescue and get all 6 miners off, then you'll start to see the red and yellow moons also come into view. The difficulty of the moons is as follows. The blue is the easiest, then it goes green, yellow, and red. Now, if you can survive long enough to reach the yellow and red moons, the scoring goes up big time when you destroy the enemies on the surface of those yellow and red moons. This is a cool game with good graphics, but I'll be damned if I could ever do well at it. Coming in at number 7, we have Laser Gates, released in 1983. Laser Gates was an obscure and semi-rare game that I personally don't ever remember playing 4 plus decades ago. I didn't know that the game even existed until sometime after I joined Atari Age back in 2006. Now, it was covered in some of the gaming magazines back in early 1984, but I guess I just don't remember it. Now, this game is a side-scrolling shooter that looks a bit like Vanguard because you're traveling through a cavern throughout the game. You pilot a ship called the Dante Dart through the caverns of the cryptic computer. I wonder where they got Dante Dart from. Now, your ship's instrument panel takes up the bottom half of the screen, and while it was a little annoying at first, after I played it for a while, it didn't really bother me. I guess I got used to it and didn't really notice it. This instrument panel displays the score, your ship's energy, your shields, and your time remaining to finish the level. It's called D time. There are several enemies that include homing missiles, bite bats, that's B-Y-T-E, bite bats, rock munchers, and radar mortars. Now, the explosion effect when you destroy the radar motor looks pretty cool, the way it blows up. Now, you must also contend with a variety of force fields that either blink on and off, or they are moving up and down with an opening, and you must squeeze through them without touching them. If you touch them, you lose some of your shields. The dense pack force fields, those are the solid ones. They can be a real challenge because you have to blast your way through them and knock out a big enough gap to squeeze through, and it can be tight sometimes. In Laser Gates, your final goal is to destroy the fail-safe detonators that are marked with the number 6507 on them. I guess we can assume that that number was used because that's the chip that powered the 2600 console. The game starts out pretty easy, but after you destroy the first detonator, things speed up quite a bit and the challenge really ramps up. Did you ever play this or have a copy of Laser Gates back in the day? Let me know in the comments. At number 6, we have Solar Storm, released in 1983. I hope you will bear with me for Solar Storm, but since it's a paddle game, I would really rather get my game footage on my actual 2600 console because of the lag factor on Stella really makes it much tougher to play. As the only paddle release that Imagic ever had on the 2600, Solar Storm offers up real precise control as you would expect in a good paddle game. Now, one of the biggest things to remember in this game is that the enemies that fire at you can only shoot at you one time. After they fire at you, you can pick them off without having to worry about getting hit. Other enemies just come down without firing, and what I do is just keep blasting as fast as I can with my laser and try to wipe them out. The game ends when you run out of ships or when too many of the enemies make it to the planet's surface and cause your planet to overheat. There are bars on the side of the screen that measure the heat, and the higher they go up, the more danger you are in of your planet overheating and thus losing the game. Now, most of the enemies don't cause too much heat if they make it to the surface of the planet. The two enemies that cause the most issues with overheating are the solar flares and especially the sizzloids. The sizzloids have a unique sound, and when you destroy a sizzloid, the explosion will also blow up every other enemy on the screen. Once your score reaches 500 points, you will be transported to the orbital platform where you can destroy fleet ships that pass above and below the planet. Now, if you can destroy 5 of them before the timer runs out, you get a free life. Pretty cool, especially early on in the game. Once you get a little bit of practice, it's not that hard. You will return to this same orbital platform when your score reaches 1,000, then 15, and so on in 500-point increments. This game starts out really easy, but the difficulty ramps up pretty darn fast. Solar Storm is a cool paddle game that is often forgotten about or gets lost in the shuffle. Hey, if y'all are still here, I really appreciate it. Just want to jump in real quick and say, if you haven't done so, please hit that like button. It really helps the video to get more exposure. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I'd be grateful if you would consider subscribing and even sharing the video with your friends that love retro gaming. All right, on with the countdown. Let's go. At number 5, we have Cosmic Ark, released back in 1982. Good old Cosmic Ark is definitely one of the more well-known and popular games from the Imagic library. It has the distinction of being one of the first games, maybe the first, that was an actual sequel from a previous game. That would be the smash hit Atlantis. Like most of Magic games, Cosmic Ark has bright, vivid graphics that are really good on the eyes and that are a real pleasure to look at. In Cosmic Ark, your mission is to save various creatures from different planets so they won't become extinct because the solar system as a whole itself is dying. Meteors are flying in from all directions and you must destroy them or risk losing precious fuel when they collide with your giant ship. When you collide with a meteor, your ship blows up, but you don't have limited lives in Cosmic Ark. It's all about the fuel supply. And when your ship runs out of fuel, that's when the game is over. Your ship's fuel is displayed on a bar below the score in the game's outer space scene. You expend fuel by firing your lasers, but you also gain fuel by destroying the incoming meteors and by rescuing the creatures on the planet's surface. Now, if you can rescue both of the little alien creatures from the planet's surface and return them safely to your ship, your fuel will be completely restored, and you'll also receive a nice point bonus. From the second planet onward, you must contend with the planetary defense systems, which move up and down, and they fire a laser beam across. And if your rescue ship gets hit, you lose fuel and any creatures you might have been carrying when your scout ship was blown up. You only have a short time to collect the alien creatures before the alarm sounds that a meteor is incoming, and you cannot fire your arc defense blasters while down below in the scout ship. So as soon as you hear that alarm, get your ass back up to your base ship, because there's going to be a meteor coming that you're going to have to blow away. If you only beam up one alien, you still get a small bump in fuel and points, and when you return back to the surface of the planet, you only have one creature to beam up the next time around, and you'll get the big bonus like you would be normally when you get two of them. Cosmic Ark is definitely one of those games, not just by Imagic, but as a whole, it seems like if you didn't own a copy, you knew somebody that did. So it seems like just about everybody has at least played this once or knows about it. Let me know if you own a copy down in the comments back in the day. Coming in at number 4, we have Atlantis, released in 1982. Oh man, good old Atlantis for the Atari 2600. You got 10 to 15 minutes to kill. This simple but very entertaining classic was definitely one of your go-to games back in the day. When it comes to eye candy and really cool sound effects, Atlantis was as good as it gets for the Atari 2600. It's still hard to believe that this game only had 4 kilobytes of ROM burned into it. The premise is simple. Save the underwater city of Atlantis from the attacking Gorgon fleet. You have 3 cannons that you can use to shoot down the enemy ships with. A cannon on the left and right edge of the screen, and a cannon right in the middle of the city. It's easiest to destroy the Gorgon ships with the center cannon, but if you're chasing a high score, remember that you get bigger points when you terminate the enemy ships with the side cannons. Your center cannon also powers the city's defensive force field, so it will always be the primary target for the attacking Gorgon fleet. Once it is destroyed, they will then start attacking other parts of Atlantis. When every installation is destroyed, the game is over. The game starts out really easy as the enemy ships move slowly across the screen. After each round, you will receive a bonus of 500 points for each part of the city that survived that round. You will also receive a free upgrade to your city for every 10,000 points scored, and they can be stored until you actually lose some installations during battle. The fastest enemy ship in the game is the Gorgon Bandit Bomber, and the sound effect it makes when screaming across the screen is one of the all-time coolest sound effects I've ever heard on the Atari 2600. If you destroy it, the explosion will also destroy all the other enemy ships on the screen at the same time. I've heard it said over the years that Atlantis is just too simple and there just isn't enough meat on the bone to make it playable for very long. But like I said at the beginning, do you have 10 to 15 minutes to burn? I always found myself coming back to this classic again and again. At number 3, we have Riddle of the Sphinx, released back in 1982. I've heard the stories over the years. Yeah, I borrowed Riddle of the Sphinx from a friend, but I couldn't get anywhere with that stupid game. Well, did you read the manual for the game? Well, no. There's a lot going on in this adventure game, and you will have a tough time if you don't look at the manual to help find out what everything is for. The manual will show you exactly how to proceed with the game. I really enjoyed games like Riddle of the Sphinx, and these types of adventure games weren't very common back in the glory days of the 2600. The fun of this game was the discovery and figuring out what you had to do in order to successfully move forward in the quest. I'm not going to go into great detail and actually try to complete a whole game because that would take too long for this video. If you're curious about how this game works, I did a video a while back where I did an actual playthrough of the game. I went into very specific detail on how to proceed and what each and every item in the game does. If you want to know more about it, the link for that video will be in the description below. Okay, we're getting close to the end here. At number 2, we have Dragonfire, released in 1982. Now, I have to be honest, when I first played Dragonfire back in the day, I was disappointed big time. I really didn't know much about the game except what I had seen on the TV commercial and just from reading the box. I was expecting a game like Adventure, but this time around you were actually going to be controlling a little fella running from dragons, not just a square dot fleeing from giant ducks. But over time, as I got over my initial disappointment, I came to love Dragonfire, even if it's much simpler than I originally expected it to be. Once again, the folks at Imagic put out another title that is beautiful on the eyes and that also has excellent tight controls. You'll need that ability to zip around quickly and collect treasures. Each dragon becomes faster and blows more fireballs than the previous one did. And speaking of dragons, this might be the best looking one that was ever put on a game for the 2600. If you think I'm wrong, let me know in the comments which one you think's better. And what about those sparkling goodies that start appearing when the game gets more challenging that twinkle? I don't think any of the superior consoles did the treasures as great as they were done on the 2600. As with Atlantis, Dragonfire is a game that's a blast to play in spurts of a few games at a time. But at some point, you always eventually come back for more of this classic game. And finally, the number 1 title is Demon Attack, released in 1982. Alright, for all of you old schoolers, this probably wasn't a great mystery, but for me, Demon Attack has to be number 1 on this list. The first time I saw the game in action was when an old friend brought it over along with Donkey Kong for the 2600 in the late summer or early fall of 1982. When I played Demon Attack, I saw the 2600 do things that I had never seen done before on that gaming system. The bright, vivid colors and the way the enemies morphed together from each side when they appeared was just awesome. Then throwing the great sound effects of when they appeared on the screen. And then you had the steady thump, thump, thump in the background that continues throughout the game. You know, it's not like it gets on your nerves. You don't really notice it's even there, but you do. It's just great. Then, just when you thought that having different enemies to shoot at on each new wave wasn't awesome enough, they suddenly start to split into 2 smaller demons when you shoot them. Demon Attack's a simple game, yes, but it broke so much new ground and really showed that the 2600 could produce some beautiful graphics and sound that we never knew were possible on the system. Imagic was such a great company back in the day. I really wish they could have hung on, you know, through the crash and not folded and hung on till the NES came out and brought the home console gaming market back from the dead in 1985. Wouldn't it have been great to see that same color design that Imagic used on its cartridges and boxes on some games that would have been put out for the Nintendo?